Hello, dear Kingy.
Morning, G. How are you?
Have you got any analytics to run on Rory McIlroy just as we start?
Rory McIlroy.
Rory's got to go join Liv and just be happy with his money.
We've all been there, haven't we?
Oh, it's torturing him.
Anyone who's played golf with mates, or you thought they were your mates until you missed that 2-footer and they just rag you for 20 minutes, has been there, Gerard. We've all been there. Tough day for the McIlroy camp.
Tough day. All right.
Good day for data, though. My man, the mad scientist.
The mad scientist, the nutty professor.
Yeah, take that for data.
All right. The King's Gambit. Your opening statement from the round, if you would, this would be for?
We've got some coaching rules, some non-negotiables, and my favourite two, and I refer to them a lot. Don't get beaten by what you know. So that's your full week of planning. How do you negate what the opposition's strengths are? How do you maximise yours? And that is coaching for me. That is, and how you have the nuance week on week to be able to subtly change what you're doing to allow for both of those things. That's rule one. So don't get beaten by what you know. So the threats coming in, don't allow them to be the reason why you lose the game. And rule number two, and we've done this a couple of times this year, is never change a winner. Never change a winner. If you've got an area that's on top, don't run the risk. Often you'll see coaches move a player from halfback who's going really well to on ball to have them fail. And you say, well, why would you do that? Look, it was going so well there. So of course it's about the Nick Dacos matchup. Now, Will Phillips has been a player that's meandered in his early days at the Kangaroos.
Yep.
And he was the last man into the team yesterday after the Simcoe mission, and they gave him the biggest job in footy, the tagging of Nick Dacos. Now, Nick was relatively well kept. The two goals that he kicked weren't Will Phillips' fault. They were a 50-metre penalty from a run-down tackle, I think it was. And the other one was a drop in the ball, I think. But they weren't Will Phillips' issue. It wasn't a tagging fault. He didn't get off the chain. He actually ran him down a couple of times. I haven't seen anyone do that. And I just thought it was the perfect opportunity to let this young fella claim the biggest scalp in the game. Nothing to do with the result. Nothing to do with trying to foresee what was going to happen in the last quarter. Let him finish the deal. And he may have been physically flagging, but so too would have his opponent. So I just thought that he could have left that matchup as is until it became a problem. Because until then, it really wasn't an issue. If it was, they would have addressed it halfway through the third or halfway through the second term. So never change a winner. So that's a risk. And then to go to Liam Shields is the wrong guy. And I think that Clarko's got a little bit of lag. He's not the player of 2015, 16, 17. He's not. So as soon as speed was a factor, he was gone. And at least Phillips had the ability to recover on him. Now I hadn't seen Will play to that level before, but irrespective of all that, that should have just been: are we comfortable with this? Yep. Let's not change a winner. And if you want to get the sub on, I understand getting the sub on for that extra boost, and they probably only needed a goal or two from Stevenson. Make the change with a tool. Anyway, that's the hindsight discussion. And everyone wants to have it. But never change a winner is not a hindsight discussion. That's in real time.
It's a rule to live by. So Clarkson changed a winner who got beaten by what they knew.
Well, it's the same discussion. You know, the Fremantle Football Club not bothering to put any energy into Marcus Bontempelli, given his history against them. I don't understand that. You cannot be beaten by Wednesday match committee errors. I mean, these guys are seriously intelligent. They understand the ramifications of the best players playing their best footy. What does a 30 disposal, 15 score involvement, 3-goal game from Marcus Bontempelli do to our chances of winning this game of footy? And logic says, well, we can't have that. So I can tell you that today for next week's game, right? If Bontempelli has this, we lose. So that's the conversation. How do we take him from that? And then there's all sorts of things you can do. Whether it's not necessarily just a tag, you might go with him at stoppage. So you have your best stoppage player go head-to-head with Bont. And then from there, we're prepared to roll the dice. Or you might say, well, we can't stop him at stoppage, but we're going to make sure he doesn't get uncontested footy. So we're going to run a pawn-type player with their marquee piece. And at least then they might send him forward. And if he goes forward, well, we're going to have this matchup for him. So that's match committee. 30 seconds into that game, Marcus Bontempelli standing at clearance and contested situations all alone. So let's be in the mind of Marcus Bontempelli for 1 minute. He'd be thinking, there's no way they're going to let me run around, given the fact that I've got 12 Brownlow. I've got 13 Brownlow votes out of a possible 18 the last 6 times we've played. 4 best on grounds and a 3rd best on ground. There's no way they're going to let me run around. And he's standing there all alone. He must be thinking, happy days. Happy days. Let's go. Let's engage. And then away they go. So as soon as you light that fire, you're in trouble. So I can't understand that. The rational people sitting around working out how they win this game and not factoring significant influence from Marcus Bontempelli into that discussion.
The golden rules of coaching. The King's Gambit for Victoria Police made for more search police careers. All right, let's delve into the big issue. So you were there yesterday with your former...
Yeah, great day.
Or not former, with your premiership teammates?
Yep. The coach always loves those days as well. It was terrific to see the boys. A few not there, but the ones that were there, great to see. Star of the show, Byron Pickett. Had a little chat with Byron on the stage. And just quick little snippet. Okay, so Byron, did Coach ever give you the green lights just to go after 1 or 2? Because I know Dennis did a couple of times. And Byron said, yeah, I can remember 2. I said, okay, which ones were they? He said, Choco Williams said, hey, today's the grand final. Everyone's on the table today. He said, so I did go for a few that day in his own way. And he said, that Danaher guy coaching at Melbourne, he said, he told me I could get Ryan Crowley one day. And I said, oh, yeah? And he went quiet. And I said, did you? And he says, what do you reckon? Lit the room up. So Byron was the star of the show. And cracking day. Bit of fun.
All right. So the big issue is, how did North lose to Collingwood? How did Collingwood beat North? How did you assess what transpired?
Oh, it's a team that knows how to win and what's required, and a team that's not there yet. But gee, they showed some great evidence that it's coming, and that it's the youth. It's the guys that have been selected at the draft over the last 4 or 5 years that are finally working out what it is, and it takes time to work that out. And then when you get Luke Davies-Uniacke play like that, and you get Nick Larkey lead the way he did, and you challenge all the other young kids to come in, and George Wardlaw has the game that says, I am the man. So we're looking for who the man is, and it may be LDU, but it may be the bloke just underneath him coming through that might go past him and say, "This, I'm the one to steer this footy club." Sheezel's a nice player, but is he the absolute man? He's better than nice. Nice is not right. He's a very, very good player. But this guy, you sometimes need one to play with the heart and soul that drags the group. And I look at Zach Butters and I see this kid is the same as Zach Butters. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about those guys that everyone wants to play with and everyone wants to play for. And when they speak, it means more. And when they act, it drags the group with them. So it was great to see from a North Melbourne point of view, and to be able to have that sort of quarter in the first quarter, and then to be able to have that sort of half. Okay, they didn't win the game, but I think what they did do is say, okay, that there's certain benchmarks now that you've blown past. Gone are the days where you can't really compete on offense. You can attack now, and you can score. There's no reason why you can't score. And I think you get some answers on those 25 pluses. And if you're not there, you're out of the team. So this is the reality of footy now. You just can't hang on to players or play them because of their birth certificates. So as Zach Fisher, you can't make those mistakes. Luke McDonald, you've got to be better. Liam Shields, you've got to be better. We're going to give you this responsibility. You've got to be better. So all those guys, so all those names go in. I would love them to sit down today, just watch that last quarter and say, okay, what did you actually do? Where do we go from here? How did you try and shift the game back to the North Melbourne favour, and just step through it? It's not a bashing session. It's just understanding what needs to happen when, and educate via the older guys, the younger players. What are you thinking here? How does this look to you now? How does this look now? Because Collingwood have this unbelievable way of being skilled and schooled on what's required. So we need to go fast. Now we need to open the game up. Now we need corridor. Now we need our runners to just go, just explode, throw the ball into space. And then as soon as they hit the lead, boom, flip the other way. So all those things, just terrific. And then they just have unbelievable performance. Look, there's guys that just think like winners.
Yes.
Bobby Hill, I keep saying it, is morphing into Toby Green right before our eyes. His ability to mark the ball is phenomenal. He's really become a significant matchup in the forward 50 now. Like, I felt for Jackson Archer. There was him. It was a one-on-one matchup with 30 metres of space every time. So that's a tough position to be in. But Dacos knew with the speed that was required. And I just want to give a shout out to Braden Maynard because sometimes you just need someone to have those defensive moments. And he had about 3 or 4 in that second half that you went, wow, that's pretty bloody good. So credit to Collingwood for coming back and winning and what it does do to the table. We showed last night. Like if they drop that game, they're 7th. They win that game, they're 3rd. Like they're big shifts on the AFL table. And it would have been an awful result for them. And while they're just hanging in for some troops to come back. But it just shows you the power. We talked about this last week. The ability to score quickly, the power in those really good sides at the top of the table. Sydney do it again on the weekend. Collingwood do it in the second half, particularly the last quarter, and are able to just go bang. We're back in the game, or the game's gone. So that if you can't score like that, we say it's the profile of a premier, being able to do that. So that's what I'm tracking.
What do you think of the no 50 at the end?
Yeah. No 50. Again, I'm not consumed by the result. It's more okay. If the Kangaroos win that game, do they get great reward? Absolutely they do. But I don't think that North fans hate you saying this. The reward for me is their ability to do what they did for the first 70 minutes of that game. That's the reward, and that's what they've got to hang on to. And I'm sure that today that'll be reiterated at the Kangaroos that this is awesome. And this is against one of the best teams in the comp. So it doesn't have 4 points attached this week. It doesn't mean it wasn't a great performance. It was one of the better games of footy that I've seen in a long time.
Yes, yeah, it was. And Jamie Elliott's mark or Bobby Hill's mark for mark of the year?
Oh, I think I don't know. It's something about Bobby Hill that just amazes me. Like he shouldn't be able to do that. Jamie Elliott to me just seems like he does it all the time, and then Bobby's. I think something about the way Bobby smiles about the game too is a warming sort of feeling. Is a comfortable manner about him. Probably Bobby's for me. I loved him. I thought his game was enormous.
I'll share 2 sentiments with you, Kingy, from the 40 Winks temper text, 0433 98 11 16. The difference is temper. Absolutely staggering that you guys aren't discussing and being critical of the umpiring. It's as if it didn't happen, which is followed by, is there anything more boring and pointless than umpire criticism? It will never end. We'll leave our conversation there. Lorraine from Keilor East has text through. I felt this was the sentiment across the community that I enacted with. I'm a Bulldog supporter, but I don't think I've ever been so upset watching a team lose that I don't even barrack for. There was that dynamic as we were all emotionally engaged in it for various reasons.
Or we just hate Collingwood. One or the other, Gerard.
The best bit was clearly Dusty's 300th, which felt like a unique day in the game's history. It had a grip on the town and that it would be 92,000 fans. So I can't ever recall a day quite like that, a day built around one person that drew the crowd because of it. We have farewell games where the game's in honour of, but it was a powerful demonstration of what he's meant to people, the affection that comes back the other way. And I feel like it's a day that in 10, 20, 30 years will be referred back to.
And the moment, that vintage Dusty goal, just he always gives the fans what they want. Now, I'm going to get to a couple of other players later, but there's only a handful of players in our comp that when the ball goes in their area, the whole crowd just hushes and takes a breath and waits for him to do something. They know that they're probably likely to scream within 3 seconds of him touching the ball, so the whole crowd just hushes just as it goes near Dusty. And for him to knock that through, and the boys were right, they did come from everywhere. He brings you into the game more than any other player. Like Franklin did that and Dusty seems to do it, or has seemed to do it more often than not. So well handled by Richmond through the whole week. Well handled by Dusty. Great interview in the post match. Very rarely do we get this sort of event this right. So it went swimmingly.
If ever I have seen a thanks for the memories wave to the crowd, it was Dustin Martin on Saturday evening. Won't be a press conference as he has had it with Jack on the field. Body language said it all. And there are those who are sharing their thoughts as the sellout of the memorabilia, and you couldn't even get a record by the time everyone had gathered inside the ground. So it sounded absolutely brilliant. So share your thoughts, 0433 98 11 16. And what was I think the best read of the crowd, it was the biggest non-Anzac Day home and away crowd since 1981.
Is that right?
Yeah. Which gives it a lovely magnitude.
Can we stay at that game for a
Yes, please do, because we've got this in the they got that right.
They got that right. Smallthorn. These small forwards, Gerard, are the reason why they're going to have such success when they get that ball on the forward line. We know about Dylan Moore. We know that the calibre of player that he can be, and the guys at Champion Data through their ratings steered us into this guy probably 3 years ago, to be fair, before he become the Dylan Moore that's now in All-Australian squad contention, if not higher. What Nick Watson's been able to do back into this team, he just gets opportunity. He just lights up a forward line. But the pairing of Ginnivan and Watson are a little bit like, it's in there. It's a little bit like Bruce when he was at his best. The game sort of the crowd stop. They do the same thing that I was speaking about a moment ago. When it's in their area, something's going to happen here. Whether they're going to love it or hate it, something's going to happen.
Yep.
They're must watch. And I love what they're doing forward of the ball. I think Chol's had. I don't know if they expected Chol to be this player. He is just in really good form. He's so reliable and so consistent at the moment. I know he kicked a lot of goals in 1 year a couple of years ago, but I just feel like this is the best version that we've seen of Marbior. It's really refreshing, and a lot of that I think has to do with the positivity of the coach, giving him the role, endorsing him that he can do the job. And I just love what they're building. I love their dare with the ball. But these smalls, when you look at the competition, there's not many talls. I know we've just had one kick 9, so let's not. And Joe's kicked 5, and Marbior's kicked 4. But the tall forwards this season haven't had the big years. It's been more the smalls that have done the damage around goals. So maybe this is a window into the future. And we've heard Sam Mitchell talk when he first got the job. I want to set this club up in a futuristic sense. Maybe he's thinking that small ball's the way to go.
Yep.
So Smallthorn might become a thing.
Smallthorn. They got that right. Watson's got to just figure out, he's just got to tidy up his goal kicking, doesn't he?
Confidence. As soon as he knocks a few through, as soon as he kicks the first one of the day and he's away, you'll see it. You'll see it click, and he'll just light it up from there.
The open question, I think, sits on the Bulldogs. They've scrapped tooth and nail to square the ledger, and we went on Saturday with a little bit of trepidation as to whether they still had one more performance left in them before they got to the bye, and did they what? Did they what? So led by their captain, and they've been playing with a made-it-up forward line for a couple of weeks, and they made it up to the tune of 24 goals. So the open question is what might this become for the Dogs post the bye?
Yeah, well, this is a very good question. I just wonder if they've got have they got this 1-2 punch in the middle that teams are really struggling with. Adam Treloar, his form, because he plays underneath Mark Bontempelli, is it gets missed a little bit. And now that they've got their returning troops in the middle, like Libba's in there, you got Ed Richards. They've got the luxury now of playing Marcus Bontempelli forward. So of the top 100 targets this year, he's the best at turning a targeted entry into a goal for his team.
Right.
Just under 50% of his targets become goals. Now, people say, "Oh yeah, but he's going forward as a midfielder." No, he's playing. He's going as a designated forward now, and still getting that defensive matchup. So he's getting a like for like defender, which is normally a key defender. So his main aim is to get the ball to ground, and then he destroys them. He turns back into the midfielder Bont at ground level. They very rarely outmark Bont. I've never seen him outmarked. So I look at this forward line and I think, well, you got Sam Darcy to come back in, and I know Rory Lobb's been in pretty good touch, but that's like for like. That will happen. And then you've got Norton. I don't know if Norton's back this week or next, or when their next opportunity is, or I haven't looked at next week. They got a bye next week.
Yeah, the Dogs.
They got the bye.
They do.
And so when we next see the Dogs, what will that forward line look like? Will it have Norton in there? Because he'll be ready for selection then. It's a couple of weeks away, I think. So now do you get absolute flexibility? Now can you look? Yeah, I've campaigned for years to have him at centre half back. That's failed, Gerard, right? But I'll just look at their profile at the moment. It's the best profile. It's right up there with the Sydney Swans in terms of weaponry and their ability to do all facets of the game. They're the best clearance team in the competition. They're last 6 weeks. Their ability to move the ball strong. The one thing that's missing is their ability to win the ball back between the arcs.
Yep.
So an intercept marker, if you like. I just wonder if now you've got things working forward of the ball with Riley West and Jamar and all those components we talked about. I just wonder whether you could look at Norton on a wing. Like him getting behind the ball for assistance and then drifting forward against a wingman. So you get the Matthew Richardson type effect where you have an undersized matchup every time. And his ability to cover the ground is terrific. Let him play with some freedom. He doesn't really knock you around structurally because you've got those players forward of the ball. And I think that you then trust Ed Richards, Libba, Sanders. They're starting to get some work out of Sanders now, and Treloar as bona fide mids to do the job with the luxury of Bont being 50% forward, 50% mid. There's some real weaponry coming out of the competition now from the Western Bulldogs point of view, and I just wonder if Aaron Norton can turn to Matthew Richardson on a wing.
So Bontempelli's best year around the sticks, he kicked 31 goals in the year he ran second in the Brownlow. So he averaged 26.7 disposals. He's averaging 26 disposals. He's up to 22 goals in 14 games. So he's going to have his best year.
Jared, if he could play Fremantle, every week, he'd win the Brownlow by 40 votes.
Here's the Bontempelli appreciation threads that have come through on the 40 Wings Temper Tech 0433 98 11 16. Get your unique bed match profile and find the right bed for you. 40 Winks, serious about sleep. I'm a doggy, but if the Bont hasn't won a Brownlow by the time he retires, I think it'll be very sad. He's such a great footballer, and if I had the choice of any player to come to my club, he'd be my first choice. He's a champ. That's from Bontempelli. Awesome. Simply awesome. If the Dogs get into the finals, look out. Bont will win a final or finals himself. An incredible player. We're so lucky. That's from Cam. And we go to sport week in, week out, and you hope to see that moment that lasts with you for a lifetime. The Bont moment in the second quarter was one of those. My 11-year-old said, "Dad, how did he do that?" And I said, "Mate, that's what the great ones do."
Awesome. The kids smiling after a game. I had to walk out with a few yesterday, the Collingwood fans, and some of them, 8, 10 years of age, smiling away, laughing away. I thought, oh.
At PFI, we were going to run PFI over Fremantle, win, lose or draw out of this game, and they failed PFI badly on Saturday.
Yeah, they did. They did. This was I thought a winnable game for them. It was the one that they had to win against the odds on the road. It's hard to win on the road, I get that. But they got the Dogs at the right time. Planning poor to not do anything against or about Marcus Bontempelli is a significant error. And I just look at their back line, and I know their back line when they play controlled footy and can get their uncontested mark game going and play their way, they can be difficult to beat. They're a good side. They're a very good list, very talented. They looked vulnerable, really vulnerable down back. And I look at the when you're under real pressure in a final, it's because the opposition have had 50% of the ball and you have 50%. You never get the game played your way the whole time in any game, really. But when we're talking about finals, we're talking about preliminary final integrity is what we talk about all the time. If it doesn't stand up in a prelim, then what's the point? What's the point of setting up a false model? So if they take You're talking about the defensive half marks. If they take under 55, they're 1-4. And that's generally the good teams take that off them. If they're able to play controlled footy and take more than 55 marks in the defensive half, there's 6 wins, a draw and a loss. But the game at speed coming at them is a problem. And this is what's going to happen. So you've got to build this defensive integrity when the game's coming at you at speed. Pearce has been enormous all year and is the nominal All-Australian fullback. Ryan's been very good. When the ball comes in slow, he's unbeatable. But when it comes in fast, and we saw West get him a couple of times and had him off the bit, they're in trouble. When the ball hits the deck, they're in trouble. So I think that they have to review this. They have to look at how they're defending fast play, because that's what will happen in a final for a period of time. You hope it doesn't happen, but logic says if it's happened for 20 years, it's probably going to happen this year. So I'm concerned with that they can cope with that, because the rest of their game's in pretty good order. They've got a couple of difficult conversations to have. They've got to have the Nathan Fyfe conversation at some stage. Is it still what we want it to be? Michael Walters getting injured probably just shows that's there's a new option there for at least in the short term that may go past that option. I'm not trying to retire blokes, but this is the Gunston-Rich discussion of last season with Fyfe and Walters.
Yep. It has to be the curiosity. A man who went with a career best of 4 goals in a game, left with 9 goals in a game. And his coach, who was a prodigious goal-kicking forward, had no sentiment whatsoever to let him get double figures. And when Amartey looked up towards the bus, he just told him, sit down.
Oh, look, it's funny, isn't it? We're all doing different things, aren't we? He's not concerned with the 10 goals, which we all were. We were all consumed with it. And Sam Wicks didn't want a part of it either. Him dropping in front of that lead, I would nearly omit him next week just for that alone, Gerard. Look, that we touched on this last week. To have the power in your game to be able to put 5 goals on a team in 6 to 10 minutes is something that only the very best have. They were in awful trouble. What was it, mid-third quarter? There were a couple of moments where the Crows just left the door ajar, a couple of bad fumbles by a couple of their senior players, and the Swans swooped. And as soon as they got the first goal, they got the second, they got the third, and gee whiz, did they get rolling. And Amartey was not just a passenger in that. He outmarked a couple in the goal square. He had moments that took some good contested marks. Like it wasn't the normal rip, tear and bust Swans that did all the hard work in the middle and someone just strolled into goal at the end. He was a major player. So that's a great sign for them to be able to see that. I haven't seen McDonald do that yet. They needed one of their forwards to do that. McLean's not going to do that. He's the second ruck that if you get a goal a game out of, you're absolutely wrapped.
Yeah.
And they rely heavily on their midfield to hit the scoreboard. So it was great from a Sydney point of view to see one forward light up like that. I didn't know he had that game in him.
No.
I mean, if I said to you 2 weeks ago, what's the highest goal tally for any given game that Amartey can have this year, what do you nominate?
I don't think I would have had him for any more than 5, given that his form was 4.
5's generous, isn't it? Yeah. He'd never gone past 4, had he?
No.
And he went past 4 in 20 minutes. He got 4 and a quarter.
So he got 4 in the second quarter, and then in the burst you're talking about, the 19th to the 30th minutes, he kicked 5, 6, 7 and 8 in that patch. Like that is proper spearhead full forward material, isn't it?
So if you haven't got a plan against Sydney with the centre bounce crew, you're in real strife, because we're going to talk all year about the key 3, Goulden, Warner, and Heaney, and how do you handle them? I think it's going to take something lateral. The days of just standing next to them at centre bounces and expecting a positive result, I think are gone. So what do you do? It's the same with the Nick Dacos discussion in at centre bounce. They are difficult to clamp. So are you almost conceding that if it falls that way, we're in trouble, and trying to minimise the damage so that it doesn't go on the scoreboard? So you're almost taking defensive position and holding your sweeper and saying, okay, we might lose it, but we're not going to lose it with power. And if you happen to win it, wow, that's a godsend.
Yeah.
I just don't think the natural centre bounce game works against Sydney.
What did you think of the hinge into Taylor Adams, which results in the second goal?
Yeah. I think they're the dumbest plays in the game. You know that there is absolutely no benefit that can come of this sort of contact, bar giving the opposition a free kick where you choose to bump him. And it's usually 20 metres from goal. So it's the dumbest event you can have in the game. So I'll put it back on the player that does it. Now, I understand why they do it. They want to show some physicality. They want to stand up against the run of goals or, just make a statement for their team. But in the end, it's going to cost you a goal. So if you want to do it, that's the price. I felt for the coach in that moment. There's a guy fighting for survival, and then a player just puts his selfish needs in front of the team's. It's just a dumb play.
John Longmire kicked double figures twice. He kicked 14 against Melbourne and 12 against Richmond in 1990. Adam posed the question, how would Horse have gone if Dennis Pagan had taken him to the bench when he was on 9 goals?
Well, I wouldn't put it past Dennis. Too much ball going towards the Horse. We've got the best player in the country at centre-half forward. Why wouldn't you kick it to him?
He twice got stranded on 9 goals.
Someone's just sent through. I think one of the 9 was it the last game of 1990 where he kicked? No, he wasn't on 90. I think he kicked 2 goals. 9.
Yeah,
2-8. 2-8. There you go, and finished on 98 goals.
Yep.
That's he still carries that deep down. Someone's just sent through 956. Pretty sure Dermy talked up Amartey last week. He might have too. I tell you who did. Finey's final siren.
Mm-hmm.
He talked him up. He said he's ready for a big game. This is last week. You can't get better than that from Finey.
No,
he's back. He is back.
Midnight prophecies with Finey.
Well, I don't even know if it was at midnight. I think it was with. Was he on with?
With Andy.
Andy and Gazy.
Gazy.
Yeah, Andy and Gazy. Yeah.
Work.
That's the sharpest work that I've heard on Andy and Gazy for years. And it wasn't even Andy and Gazy.
That'll get back. It's on Adelaide. Every part of the football club at the moment. You only have to have an ear or an eye towards what's happening across the border to get a sense of that. They had a good lead late in the third quarter and ended up with a sizable defeat. The pressures come for Adelaide.
Played some good footy, didn't they? In the first half, played some really good footy, but it's just a difficult situation they're in right now. You don't envy the coach. You don't envy the decision makers there. They're in the pressure cooker right now, and it is getting hot. And this is where you need your club to be strong and stay consistent with your messaging. He's our man. He's our man. Do not waver. Do not get a word wrong in this next couple of weeks whilst it's sensitive until they can find that next win. Now, I haven't looked at the draw fixture or the fixture going forward, but I don't even know who they play. But right now, their biggest problem is they can't move the ball. Well, the Crows and Matty Nicks have been famous for being able to move the ball. Defensive 50 to down the ground and obviously resulted in an inside 50. But they are the worst in the competition the last 6 weeks. Now, that's stinky.
Yep.
That needs to be fixed. So I look at selection. Do they actually need to pull the ripcord now and say to Rory Laird, mate, you are going to halfback? It's not working in the middle. You're getting a lot of ball. We're getting nothing from it. You're looking fumbly. You don't look like you want contact in the middle of the ground. Back to halfback and try these kids and find out. Just get some answers now. So what are you trying to achieve out of the back half of the year? I think you narrow the focus for the players. We're going to be hard to move the ball. We're going to move the ball, and we're going to be hard to move the ball against. I watched the Giants yesterday, and Adam Kingsley would have said, hey, I don't care what happens, we're getting our tsunami back, and we're going to over-handball to force the fact I want you guys running. I want support, and I want reward. So if someone turns up, you give them the ball. And that created a false tsunami, if you like. It was a false wave, but it just got them going. It was enough to get the job done. And I think it's enough to sort of just start the wheel turning again to getting their run and gun game back. Because everyone feels good about themselves when you do that. The Crows need something like that. They need reward for their work. They need to find a way to get them running again and get them excited again. Because it all looks too hard at the Crows at the moment.
So they've got the bye.
Yeah.
And then they've got the Giants in Adelaide, Brisbane at the Gabba, St Kilda in Adelaide, and Essendon at Marvel.
Yeah.
So that they'd need to be beating the Giants. They'll need to win their 2 at home.
Or get their brand back. Just get their mode back. Because you've got to have a way you can win the game. But what's to sell to the players? And I think it starts ball in hand. But be difficult to contain and then difficult to play against, and the wins will come from there. But they've got to find something to cling to. Right now, there's nothing to cling to. They're clinging to the poor performance. You're underperforming, you're out. You're not leading, you're out. You've got to flip that into hey, if we do this, if we can do that. I think that's where they're at right now, and I still back him. I still see enough in Matty Nix, and that's again an unpopular opinion because people are looking at the ladder and the poor performance of this year, and I understand that they're entitled to that view. I still think he's a very, very good AFL coach. They're just in an awful position.
Yeah, their conversation is much bigger than the coach. I'll hold to that all year. Yeah. He must be the coach in round 1 next year. Adelaide needs to make change. It's not the coach. It's not the coach position that's the first to change here. They've got a lot to own up to, I think.
They need a whole host of changes.
Yep.
And a couple of people need to probably put their hand up and say, no, it's me before him.
Refresh.
Yep.
The pressure index on the Crows for base compression, proudly Australian owned. Elevate your performance with base. Vitalbasecompression.com today.
Sorry, cut you off there. You didn't happen to see Riley Thilthorpe on the socials on the weekend, did you?
No.
My God, has he put on some size?
Right.
Oof.
Good size?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, he looks great.
Okay.
I can't wait for him to come back. I'm not sure when he's returning to play, but he looks like the man forward of the ball now.
But the buys sort of skew the seedings a little bit.
Oh.
If you sit in the stable, sometimes you can have your position enhanced, a la Carlton, and sometimes you can have your position usurped by not being right in front of us. Who have you got at 4?
Are we putting Sydney in this week or out
Yes,
this week?
in this week.
Oh, well.
Yeah, we can only pay favourite out.
We only have 3 positions available.
That's right.
Well, if you're going to squeeze my 3 and 4, it's a toss-up between the Giants and the Dogs. I think the Dogs will be in the 8 and threatening in 4 weeks' time. I'll go the Dogs.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going Hawthorn.
Hawthorn?
Well, they're playing the second best footy of the day.
Sheesh.
So Essendon and Brisbane.
Seedings are wild.
Essendon and Brisbane Bulldogs are all, better futures prospects. But right now, Hawthorn are entitled to a place in the seedings.
A-Rod's got to you, I think.
3.
3, the Pies.
Collingwood.
Sometimes you just have to win those games. And to be able to do that with such power was a terrific outcome for them.
2.
To the Blues.
Yep. Big Friday night coming, isn't it?
I'm telling you, it's going to be season of the Sticks. Sticks Kernahan's going to be handing the cup over, Gerard. He's got a chance to hand the cup over at the end of the year. Season of the Sticks.
Great Friday night against Geelong coming up, second time around, and Sydney are the 1 seed.
Nothing changes with Sydney. I think the biggest question for Sydney is, do they rest the key 3 in the back half of the year? They've had their couple of buys. They're as fresh. But now they've got their long stint. Do they rest them at, say, round 18 to make sure they're cherry ripe for the finals, or run the gauntlet?